Hi, this is Ashlee. This is Daniel. They run a temp agency in Canberra. They're trying to work out if their company needs a labour hire licence for the new scheme starting in the Australian Capital Territory on 27 November 2021. They're already running late and they're a bit concerned. Their industry association has told them that they need a licence if they employ and pay temps whom they supply to work for their host clients. They get that. But after listening to Ashlee and Daniel, it seems it's not that simple. There are a few features of their business model that don't quite fit with the information they've received so far. Firstly, they don't actually employ the temps. There's another company that does that. And they don't actually supply the workers to the client hirers. There are some other companies that do that as well. So who in this arrangement needs a labour hire licence? There's a way we can find out. Let's see if we can help. To get started, we'll invite Ashlee and Daniel to tell us about their agency structure and the arrangements they have with their temps. Now you might want to make a note of this. An arrangement doesn't require a formal contract or any contract at all. It's enough if there's a plan of action between two or more people that even though it may not be legally enforceable, they intend to follow, giving rise to mutual expectations and at least moral obligations. So let's listen to what Ashlee and Daniel can tell us about their agency structure. Ashlee and Daniel formed their company Holdings in 2010 to acquire the shares in an existing white-collar clerical temping agency, White Collar. In 2015, they saw an opportunity to build their corporate client base by providing corporate hospitality and event staff. So they acquired all the shares in the boutique temping agency, Hospitality. White Collar and Hospitality already had existing client contracts, which Ashlee and Daniel didn't want to disrupt. But they needed a leaner management structure. So they left the client contracts with the two subsidiaries and decided that Holdings would handle all work seeker interviews, client services requests, and temp placements. They also wanted to concentrate on building their business without being distracted by all the regulatory changes that were taking place in workplace relations. So they appointed an outsourced payroll company, Pay Rock and Roll, that offered to go on the record to employ their temps and to handle employer responsibilities for them. Now that we've got a good idea of how they're set up, let's ask them this question. When work seekers come to you, what do you tell them about how you can help them get work? What we're looking for here is whether Ashlee and Daniel's company Holdings has a supply arrangement that allows it to supply temps to another person to do work, and whether the arrangement includes a payment obligation. Here's what we've learned about Ashlee's and Daniel's business model. When a work seeker approaches them, they conduct a preliminary interview to see if the work seeker might be suitable. If they appear suitable, Ashlee and Daniel place them on their temp register. They tell them that being on the register means that they're eligible for placement with host clients on assignments. They then explain that although some related companies, which they control, have the temp services supply contracts with the client hirers, all client services requests and temp assignments are controlled by them. They explain that an external company provides payroll services and will be on record as their employer. It handles all employer responsibilities for workers' compensation, tax, superannuation and that sort of thing if they're offered work. Ashlee and Daniel assure their temps that if they're employed by the payroll company and work on assignments through White Collar or Hospitality, their wages will be paid directly into their account. If the temps are happy with this arrangement, Ashlee and Daniel put it into effect. Pay Rock and Roll puts them on their books, and assignments are offered to the temps by Daniel when requests come in from the clients of White Collar and Hospitality. What do you think? Does Ashlee and Daniel's company Holdings have a supply arrangement, and does it include a payment obligation? If the answer to both those questions is yes, then it looks like Holdings is going to need a labour hire licence. Well, it seems pretty clear that Ashlee and Daniel definitely have an arrangement with their temps. It's also clear that that arrangement allows them to supply their temps to hirers. Supply to hirers under the arrangement they have with the temps doesn't need to be direct. It can take place through other intermediaries. In this case, it takes place through Ashlee's and Daniel's related companies, White Collar and Hospitality. Next, we have to consider whether the arrangement that Ashlee and Daniel have with their temps includes a payment obligation. This can be tricky, but did you know that a payment obligation needn't be contractual? Even though they don't enter into a formal employment contract with their temps, Ashlee and Daniel assure them that under their supply arrangement and by agreeing to have pay rock and roll as the employer of record, the temps will get paid for the work they perform. That assurance mightn't be contractually enforceable, but can you see that there's quite a strong argument for saying that Ashlee and Daniel have at least a moral obligation arising from their arrangement to see that their temps get paid for the work they perform. So then, even though Ashlee and Daniel don't employ the work seekers, don't supply them directly, and don't pay them directly, it looks like their company could still be a labour hire provider and that it might need a licence. Ashlee and Daniel, does that help to explain things a bit more clearly? Okay, Ashlee and Daniel are going to get that checked out by their lawyers and get their application done. They'll be well equipped now to give their lawyers the information that they'll need in order to give confident legal advice. We'll leave Ashlee and Daniel at this point, though there are a few loose ends that their lawyers might tie up for them. Whether Pay Rock and Roll needs a licence, Ashlee's and Daniel's liability if it doesn't have one, whether Pay Rock and Roll is the temp's true employer, if it isn't, who is, and what might flow from that, and whether their company's White Collar and Hospitality need separate licences.
Hello, I'm Andrew Wood. I'm an Honorary Life Fellow of RCSA and a Workforce Governance Principal with Work Accord. Throughout this month, I've been working on several projects that examine the Australian labour hire licensing schemes and attempt to clear up some misconceptions about the distinction between providers who need licences and intermediaries who don't. I hope this short video will promote discussion of what's been an important topic for many in the recruitment and staffing industry. You might have noticed that Ashlee and Daniel's business model had several features that placed it somewhere between the extremes of you clearly do need a licence and you clearly don't need a licence. That's the grey area that I've been working in, and it's a large area. I also hope you are able to follow the approach we adopted, listening first to Ashlee and Daniel as they explained their business structure and their engagement and supply model, and learning about the arrangements they made. That allowed us to map their arrangements and make a decision about whether they might need a licence. Listening, learning, mapping, making. I think it makes a better start than jumping into the definitions of what a provider is under different types of labour hire arrangements, presently covered by the 4 state and territory licensing schemes. You'll also have noticed that there are some loose ends that need tying up. The approach we've been using allows us to identify those issues more clearly so that you can take them to your lawyers for focused legal advice should you need to. In our follow-up video, we'll present a behind-the-scenes view of the analytical process we used to help Ashlee and Daniel access the information they needed to find an answer to their question. And we'll go into a bit more depth about some of the subtle but crucial distinctions you need to make when you're dealing with different types of labour hire arrangements. Now, we'd love to get your feedback. If you found the video helpful, please give it a like, add a comment, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also contact us through our website, www.workaccord.com.au. We're always happy to discuss recruitment and workforce topics with you, and we greatly appreciate your business. Let's talk again soon.